Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this special Jazz Appreciation Month edition of The Pulse. I'm Kiana Faircloth here with you, host of WBGO's Afternoon Jazz. And I'm super excited to talk to vocalist, songwriter Dara Tucker this evening. She's got a new album, which you just sort of got a sneak peek into there, called Dreams of Waking, which really tells a story of the times. She's reimagining songs from the protest era. And of course, it fits what's happening in our world right now in the social political climate that is America. And she couples that with original compositions on this album, Dreams of Waking, as well. She is here. Dara Tucker's in the house. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
You're welcome. I am really excited to meet you.
Oh, it's good to see you too. I feel like we've met, but I guess we haven't. Maybe I've just seen you from a distance.
I know.
Like
social media is funny that way. It'll have you really have met people and you know them real well.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing, and not at the same time sometimes. But I'm really happy to have you here. Welcome to the Pulse, Dara.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. I'm really honored. I'm honored that you would have me.
Absolutely. It's my honor, really. And I'm just super excited for the world to hear Dreams of Waking, music for a better world. Because as Cyrus Chestnut so eloquently put it, you are really a balm, a musical balm that people really need right now. Your vocals aren't just, sweet and poignant, but the way you deliver the lyrics and your songwriting capabilities coupled with that, really have made for an amazing, powerful record, which I have sat and listened to a couple times now. And really, you have done some amazing things with classics. And really, you've opened my mind to hear them in a way that I had never heard them before.
That's cool.
So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was the intent. I mean, we're pulling from a pool of songs that they're so timeless. They're time worn, but then they're timeless as well. So it's like, how can we bring something fresh to that? I know it's always the challenge when you're doing cover songs that are familiar to people. But I'm glad to hear you say that, because that was the intent behind it. To bring life into them.
Some incredible folks with you on this album.
Yeah.
You saw Cyrus Chestnut there, Sullivan Fortner, Joe Dyson, Desron Douglas. Tell me, how did you get everyone together, especially, of course, during a pandemic?
Well, make this? That was kind of the key, was the pandemic. It was like, here's my wish list of musicians that if I could just pick and choose who I have on the project, these are the people that I would work with for this particular one. And I mean, we went down the list. I think there may have been one person that we reached out to who could do it, and then something changed with his schedule. But other than that, everyone that we contacted was actually open and in town. Wow. And I can't imagine, outside of the pandemic, trying to organize that many people to be in town all at one time. It would have been impossible, really, for all of them to be in town at the same time. They would have been on the road,
Yeah.
So
look at that. Look at God, as they say.
Yeah.
You got Cyrus Chestnut, whom I absolutely adore. He's at Howard University now, my alma mater, really, doing this thing with the students up there. But not just him, Sullivan Fortner. You've got, up and coming all-star on the trumpet, Gifton Jellin. So you brought these people together who are seasoned, on the scene, as well as those who are just kind of, people are starting to hear buzz about them. What was that like? What was the synergy like once you all got into that creative space and started the recording session? I'm curious.
Well, I mean, we had two different bands. So the first band was Cyrus Chestnut, Desron Douglas, and Jonathan Blake, the drummer. And then the second band was a bigger 5-piece thing with Sullivan Fortner and, like I said, Gift and Gel and John Ellis. We had Joe Dyson and Vicente Archer. So 2 separate bands. And, we had never worked with any of these people before. Wow. I don't think I had performed with any of them other than John Ellis. So it was really just kind of a double whammy. It was like a get to know you session. And then it was also like figure out how to musically gel, at the same time. So it was not an easy task, but I'll tell you, you might be familiar with a guy named Greg Bryant.
Yes.
Who is a man, he wears many hats.
Including host of Jazz After Hours at WBGO.
At WBGO. He's a host there. And he acted as the producer on this project. He's also happens to be my husband. And he's a bass player as well, but he stepped aside for this project and decided to just, he wanted to hear this one done with upright, which he's an electric bass player. So we decided to do upright. But I think he was really the glue, interestingly, that just brought everything together. Because a lot of it is about communication. It's about logistics. It's about everyone knowing where they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to be doing, having their music ahead of time, being communicated with properly. A lot of it's that, and then that can kind of quell all of the nervous energy and the what's going on, of it all. And then also just hiring a group of people who are just generally just good people, and we try to be that way as well. No attitudes and big heads, and there wasn't ego and all of that stuff that can really make some of these sessions a little bit prickly at times. And we've been in every kind of situation you can imagine. But it was so chill. I'm telling you, it was like, there were things that we had to work through, but ultimately it was like, we were able to count on their professionalism. We were able to count on them to just come in and bring just the amazing thing that we knew that they would bring, and to serve the music rather than serving their egos. And a lot of them had worked together. Thankfully, they knew each other, and we tried to get, guys who were familiar with each other. But just as far as us me inserting myself in all of that, it was like, let them be the pros that they are and just find yourself in it. Yeah. So yeah, it was very interesting. It's an interesting 3 or 4 days. Yeah. Recording.
4 days.
Mm-hmm, I think so.
The entire recording process.
I think so. It was either 4 or 5 days. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Now tell me, how did you come about with compiling the songs that you decided for Dreams of Waking? I'm curious because they're so carefully curated, and each song seems to be speaking to something that's happening, or, how we should be living or being right now, especially in these times.
Yeah. Well, this project, the concept of the project really was the idea of a man named Greg Howard, who works for Green Hill Music, which is the label that I'm with. And it's a label out of Nashville, which is where I just moved from. But it was his idea to kind of do a project that spoke to the times. I mean, I'm a writer, and that's generally what I do. But his idea was, okay, we have a group of songs from the 60s, 70s that was really the height of like the social justice movement. And how can we take those songs and give them meaning for today, and bring out the meaning that is already in them for what is going on right now. And unfortunately, there are a lot of parallels between what was happening then and what's happening now. So that was it was kind of the brainchild of Greg Howard. And so then we got together and sort of brainstormed. He's like, okay, you throw some songs out there. I'm going to throw some songs out there, and we're going to figure out what makes the most sense for like your concept and what you all think you can bring some interesting arrangements to, and what your voice fits. And it was a really cool process, because it wasn't like, do this, do this, do this. It was like, here's the concept. Now let's figure out what works best for you. So it was, it was a very reciprocal kind of process of working through ideas. And then, if something didn't work, I worked on an arrangement for, I'm trying to remember the name of the song, but it's Stop Children, What's That Sound? Everybody, and I thought I wanted to do that. And I got in on the piano and started trying to work through an arrangement, and it just didn't work. And I reached out to him like, this one's not going to work. Can we switch over to, I think it was You've Got a Friend. So it was really cool. They were so easy to work with, thankfully. and we got a group of songs that feels like the songs feel like they were tailor-made to my voice, the arrangements too.
So your lead single currently is Secret of Life. And something cool really happened. James Taylor actually reposted it.
Yes. Yeah, James Taylor. And I don't think I realized this, even though I follow him on every platform imaginable. He is literally just, he's part of the foundation of what, makes my musical world what it is. He's between him and Stevie Wonder. I mean, that's just kind of what it is. But he loves to post fan covers on his Instagram in particular. And so I hashtagged James Taylor, not expecting James Taylor or James Taylor's people to actually reach out when I posted about covering the song, but it's the lead single. I was like, oh, James Taylor, we're going to do this hashtag, whatever, went on. And, they inboxed me and were like, he wants to post your song and just let us know when you plan to share it. So thankfully I had really burned the midnight oil putting together a lyric video for the song. We had not planned to do any video for it at all. And I just got the urge. I was like, I feel like I need to do a video element for this song. And this was 2 days before they reached out. So thankfully, when they reached out, I was like, well, I have a lyric video I can send to you, it just was fortuitous. It worked out, it just amazingly.
Look at that.
So yeah, I was like, Jesus can come back now. I'm done.
Right.
Nothing else needs to happen ever again in my life. That was like, it's very true. Yeah. There's so many elements that had to come together to make this project possible that really wouldn't have, I wouldn't have been able to plan or create. So.
Now you're super humble because you talk about being in the studio with, these great musicians that you brought together for Dreams of Waking, but you yourself are an incredible singer-songwriter, and you actually wrote a song for Keb Mo, which he won a Grammy for. Let's talk about that. First of all, how did you tell me about the relationship between you and Keb Mo and how you guys started even working together?
Well, that came about through a mutual friend of ours named Marcus Finney, who's a drummer who lives in Nashville. Again, I just moved from Nashville, so a lot of my references and connections are still Nashville references. But Marcus Finney is an incredible drummer and human being that lives in Nashville, Tennessee, and he plays for Keb Mo. So he had been telling Keb Mo over and over and over again, you need to talk to Dara Tucker. She's an incredible writer. You need to talk to her. You guys need to work together. And Keb Mo loves collaborations. So finally, Keb Mo throws like a yearly party, and Marcus was like, you need to come to this party, and you and Keb Mo are going to meet. He didn't tell me why he wanted me to come. But so Marcus kind of arranged all of that, and Keb Mo and I got to talking. He's like, yeah, give me a call, and we're going to, just have like a songwriting session. So we did. And in the midst of this songwriting session, he's just kind of asking me about my biography and all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, I'm from, Tulsa, Oklahoma. I grew up there and la, la, la. And we went and talked for another 5 minutes or so. And he just suddenly jumped and went, wait a minute. I've been working on a song called Oklahoma. He's like, you're from Tulsa. Are you serious? You're from Oklahoma? And he went and got the paper that he'd been working on. He's like, I didn't know what to do with this. And all I have is Oklahoma. He's like, I don't know what else to say. I don't know anything about Oklahoma. Say, well, I know some stuff about Oklahoma. So it was really just like, kind of a brainstorming session of just like, what makes up that state. And, for me, it's like a convergence of so many things, just a clash and a convergence of things. And so that's what we wanted to communicate. And he liked the song so much that he ended up naming the record after the song.
Wow. So,
and yeah, for him to win that Grammy.
Best Americana Album, was it?
Americana Album.
Wow.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And I got to sing on the song as well. We got somebody in the chat, Marianne Sanchez, says she's from Tulsa. Hi, Marianne.
Hey, Marianne.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. It was another one of those just kismet moments. It's like, well, I couldn't have planned that if I tried.
No. So really, I mean, your songwriting experience sort of runs the gamut of genres, it seems. You wrote, the Grammy Award the lead song in the Grammy Award winning album for Keb Mo. but you also grew up in church singing gospel. So I'm curious, Dara, like, how did you come to appreciate jazz? Like, where did jazz sort of, spark your interest?
I think because I grew up in a super conservative home. My father was a minister and my mother was a singer, but we just were, constantly in church. My grandmother was a pastor. So it was just all Jesus all the time. There was really nothing else. You just, and tough luck if you had any interest in anything else. So I was very much steeped in, Andre Crouch and the Clark sisters, the Winans, the Hawkins, and all of those great families of gospel. But my mother had a real interest in musicals. Movie musicals. So, I feel pretty. I thought she'd go around the house singing that. And, the Hills Are
so we could just have a sing along right now.
I go crazy over that stuff. And that's because of her. It's because of my mother. Even though secular music was not allowed in our home, technically, we were not allowed to listen to any secular music. But the exception was if we were watching movies and there was music in the movies, then we could listen to that. And it was like, oh, there's this whole other world of like really gorgeous, lush strings and all of this stuff. So that was probably where my ears first opened up to that. And, then just from there, it was like I was discovering Dean Martin and Mel Torme and even, BJ Thomas, and then got into James Taylor, and just, you just start kind of fanning out and figuring out how to get into this person from your love for that person. And I would get the little radio that I got for Christmas, and I would stick it under my my pillow at night. My sister Dolly is actually in the comments right now, and unfortunately she had to share a room with me, and I would stick the pillow under there. She hated it when I would listen to this music because she's very spiritual and I was very much not. So we clashed
thanks
a lot.
Thanks for being patient with Dara.
She endured so much.
Paid off.
She endured so much. She's one of my biggest supporters now, but I drove her crazy. But I got into the Manhattan Transfer and just any kind of big band music that I could listen to, and it just opened up a whole world for me. Yeah. So that was where that all kind of started, I think, from my mom.
Yeah, awesome. So you actually spent some time living in Switzerland for a little while too.
Yeah, I did.
Tell me about that.
I did. I lived and worked for about a year in Interlaken, Switzerland, right after college. I had majored in international business and German studies in school, and came out of that school. It was a small liberal arts college in Tulsa. So you can imagine I really didn't have a lot of exposure to the culture, the German language or culture, even though I had majored in it. I had a degree in it, and it just felt like I was woefully unprepared for whatever job prospects I might have or life prospects I might want to have. So I decided to just au pair in Switzerland for a year. I'm like, I'm going to go take care of somebody's children and just immerse myself in the culture and language, the German culture and language. So I got to Switzerland and didn't realize that they spoke a dialect of German that was completely different from the High German that is spoken in Germany. And I call it German on crack. It was just insane. I got there and I remember the host dad was playing the radio when he was taking me back to the house from the airport. He picked me up from the airport and the radio was on. And I thought, and I was listening to the the speaker that was on the radio. And I asked him, I said, is this German? Is this German? He, oh yeah. That's German. Yeah, that's Swiss German. That is Swiss. It was like total culture shock. So that was an interesting experience, but it did help me improve my German and made a lot of connections and friendships. And, it was an enriching experience, but that's where my songwriting journey began. That's where I started writing songs in Switzerland.
Interesting. So eventually though, music called your name and you came back to the US and you landed in Nashville.
Yeah.
Tell me about that process.
I did. I said, well, I was in Switzerland and I saw an interview with Wynonna Judd talking about the need for more songwriters or better songwriters in Nashville. And since I had started writing songs in Switzerland, I figured, well, that might be a good city for me to relocate to. I knew I didn't want to go back to Tulsa. There just weren't enough prospects for me. I knew I wanted to spread my wings and just kind of stretch out and do something more. So I'm like, well, Nashville kind of makes sense. I don't have to feel the pressure to, be this like super hot, Britney Spears type performer, because I know I'm not that. So if I can just go write, I think maybe I was trying to hide out or something. I'm like, if I could just write music, at least that'll be something that gets me in that creative space that I'm already in, because I had been writing songs. And so that was what put the idea in my mind, was Wynonna Judd on Larry King Live. And I moved to Nashville in 04, I think. And just met Greg Bryan. He was one of the first people I met when I got there.
Wait, so you didn't know anyone there? You just decided to leave Switzerland and move to a brand new city that you had no connections to at all?
Yeah.
Just because Wynonna said
yes.
Well,
it sounds crazy when you say it that way.
You're brave. I kind of did the same thing, so I can relate. But
well, remember the line from Sound of Music where she says, and it was the reason for going to Switzerland too, I've always longed for adventure, to do the things I never dared. So it was just that sense of like, what's out there? If I really take the plunge, it will always lead to something interesting, something beautiful. And man, I fell on my butt a few times. My dad had to pay my living expenses for about 6 weeks when I first got there. And that was a humbling experience, because in my mind, I was very self-sufficient and independent. And, I think it's important to acknowledge, when telling our stories about how we made the journey, to talk about, my father used to say, people want you to think people want you to think that they can walk on water, but they don't want you to know where the rocks are.
Right.
They want you to know where the stones are. Well, my father was a stone for me at that time, because he came in, he was clutch, and came in and caught me at a time where I could have ended up back in Tulsa, feeling like a failure. But he helped to sustain me for, a good couple months until I, figured out my life.
That's a beautiful thing to have, the supportive family. So your family has always been supportive of you, being in the secular music world, although you grew up, of course, traveling and singing in the church and things.
Well, he was actually, and ironically enough, my father was, like I said, was a music minister. He was one of the ones who was really concerned when I said, I am moving to Nashville, because I came back to Tulsa for maybe 2 months before I came to Nashville. So Switzerland, then Tulsa for 2 months, then came to Nashville. And he was one of the ones who's just like, I don't think you should do this. I don't know why you're doing this. What is this? They didn't understand the secular music thing at all. That was totally just like out of the norm for our family. All of it was just like, what is she doing? And I have so many singers and musicians in my family who are, many of them far more talented than I am. And I'm sure they were probably wondering, like, well, you're not even really one of the ones that we, feel like is just like super gifted. So my thing really had to be cultivated and had to be developed over time. I was not, fresh out of the womb, just doing the thing at all. So that it took a lot of adjustment, but before he passed, both my parents ended up being my biggest supporters.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's incredible. But they believed in you. They
really did.
And they might not have understood at the time.
Yeah.
That is faith.
Yeah.
They believed in you. That's beautiful.
Yeah, they always knew I was like a firecracker and I was just gonna, just be ornery and just do stuff. They knew. My father was always accusing me of building a bomb in the basement or something. What are you doing? What are you up to? And they knew, something was coming. They didn't know what. But then when it started to materialize, it was like, oh, okay, we can see what she's up to. We see what she's doing.
Yeah. So 6 albums later, you really have, your approach to music has really been open-minded. I mean, if you listen to your albums, you're going from genre to genre, it seems. So how have you now landed in this jazz arena? I'm just interested to know, because it seems like you've been singing it your entire life, to be honest. So how did you get here? Who are your influences and who are the people who have inspired you to take on this jazz vocal thing?
Well, when I first got to Nashville, I was doing mostly cover songs. It was mostly standards. I was doing a lot of that cocktail singing where, you're singing over the steak tartare and, maybe they're listening and maybe they're not, that kind of thing, which, a lot of us, it can be very difficult to escape that environment because people want to hear, something light over their dinner. But my early influences were Nat King Cole. My father loved him. Ray Charles. My mother loved Nancy Wilson. Like I said, all the musical theater people. Sarah Vaughan was actually one of the first cassette tapes that I bought when I was in college. And then I think, local radio stations that played a lot of contemporary artists that were doing throwback albums, that ended up being a huge influence on me. So people like Linda Ronstadt, Michael Feinstein, even like Barry Manilow, Manhattan Transfer, Harry Connick Jr. I learned a lot from him. Natalie Cole, people that were doing albums that were being put out at that time, but they contained a lot of the standards. That was where I cut my teeth, and that was where I learned many, many, many standards. And so, I think sometimes those newer artists get a little bit of a hard time from some critics about, how well they tackle the standards or whatever. But it was important for me at that time before I even knew who Sarah Vaughan was. I was learning songs from Linda Ronstadt, So a lot of those folks they're the foundation. Mel Torme, they're the foundation of a lot of the songs I knew when I got to Nashville. Didn't even have to learn them,
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. So I want to switch gears just a little bit because there may be something that folks may not know about you, and that's that you're a comedian. I know you're like, where are you going with this?
In the very loosest definition of the word. You're being generous.
Yo, her TikTok following is outrageous. My jaw dropped when I saw how many TikTok followers you had. First of all, how did that happen?
Girl child. Woo, Lord. I just feel like I have been thrust into just a completely different arena because it's so funny. Most of the people over there have no idea that I am a singer. And the music it's been everything. That's been what my life has been about, since 2004. And all of a sudden to have coming up on 250,000 people following me on TikTok not for music. I post music over there and it's like, eh. And then I post comedy sketches and social commentary and video essays and things. And it's just, the response it's just so much more than I could have imagined. I'm planning on reposting a video that I posted almost a year ago. I think it was June of last year, where I did a sketch about the idea of like older people getting on TikTok and how disorienting it is. Cause that's how I felt when I first went on there. I'm like, I'm over here and I know something's happening over there, but I'm not sure where I fit. And I put up like one musical thing and it didn't do anything. And I just was like, this is not for me. So I ended up doing a comedy sketch about, just it being so disorienting to be over there. And, I just sat it out for a few months and just, didn't think about it too much. But I'm like, wait a minute, there's something in this for me. There's something there. So I just started putting up little stupid stuff that didn't mean a whole lot. And slowly but surely, I started to figure out, it's really has taught me, because there's 60-second videos. And it has taught me what it takes to reach people quickly and to be effective in that. It's like, you are serving them. You are not serving yourself. It's not like I want you to hear what I'm doing. It's like, no, what are you going to respond to? And let me play into that. And then finding a way to merge that with my interests and my own sense of humor and my, desire to communicate certain things about, social justice. And it's been a kind of a whirlwind, really, because all this has happened really in the last 6 months, Yeah,
I was going to ask you, when did this funny bone emerge? Is it something you've always had the gift of comedy, or?
Yeah, my mom was silly. She was very silly. And I know that my sense of humor, all my siblings, I have 6 brothers and sisters, our sense of humor came from our mother. So we were, our household was just inside joke after inside joke, just stuff ricocheting off the walls constantly. We were all just, goofballs. So I always thought I was funny. I don't think anyone thinks I'm as funny as I think I am, but I always felt like I had this ability to at least be a comedy writer. And I guess it's a parallel with music, because I came to Nashville thinking I'm going to write, and it wasn't really about being in front of people. So with comedy, I always felt I had the ability to write, but I didn't necessarily feel I had the ability to be in front of people. But TikTok kind of forced the issue. And yeah, I always felt like I had the bone, but I never exercised that at all. It was just like, oh, no, I couldn't, I never could do that. And I just kind of dipped my toe in the water, and it would just be, one little silly thing. And then I would add to it. And gradually I'm like, this, people are responding to this a little bit. It was pretty cool.
So another thing quarantine brought out here.
It really was kind of a quarantine thing. It really was. And I will say that I went through a really tough health struggle last year, which my doctor thinks is probably related to like some long-term COVID symptoms, some weird neurological stuff that was just, it was all consuming. And I ended up for about 3 months just not being able to, I couldn't even really walk straight, couldn't function, dealt with, all kinds of agitation, weird stuff, just a weird group of symptoms that still has not been explained. And thankfully I've gotten so much better just recovering, through dietary stuff and just rest, recovery, support from Greg. But when I came out of that stuff, I hit the ground running. I was just like, life is short. There were times where I did not feel that I would survive last year. And I'm like, life is too short to clip our own wings and keep ourselves from pursuing the things that we feel deeply in our heart that we should do or could do, or just the fun, that we want to have, the silliness, we keep ourselves from so many things because, oh, what would people think? What would they say? Oh, they shouldn't know what I think about this. I would try to keep all of my political feelings, off of social media. It's just like, I don't do that. And, I wouldn't dare be silly. But after that whole ordeal last year, it just opened up the floodgates. And it was like, you know what? It is not that dire. It really isn't. Life is meant to be lived. And I'm going to push this full throttle. And that's, it was a lot of the impetus for what I started doing.
Well, let's show the people how funny you actually are.
Oh, Lord.
Dara Tucker, the comedian.
If you can read this post, that means you are a genius. I'm a genius. My family's going to want to know about this. I'm sharing that. Only 25% of your friends are seeing your posts. Post this to reset your newsfeed. Well, I've been wondering why I haven't been getting many likes lately. This looks like it'll do the trick. I'm sharing that. Facebook is removing any and all images with crosses in them. Hurry and share this before it's removed. I'm sharing that. This dog with 2 legs was called ugly. Will you share this to show him that he's beautiful? Of course, I'll share that. Tyler Perry is partnering with Ellen to give $500,000 to the first 50 people that share this post. Oh my God, I hope it's not too late. Oh, I gotta hurry up and share this.
Thanks for coming in to meet with us about the social media manager position. Well, thank you for having me. Your qualifications look great. Now, since you'll be managing the online presence of a Black female, I need to ask you about some very specific experience that you'll need in order to be effective at this job. Okay, how are you at dealing with mansplaining? I have 3 years experience with that. Great. And white-splaining? Extensive experience. Microaggressions? All the time. Tone policing? It's my specialty. Racial slurs? Gross, but yes. Alt-right cyberbullies? I eat them for breakfast. Now this is a tricky one. What about well-intentioned white people encouraging you to employ respectability politics to be a bit more effective at engaging other worse white people who are supposedly the real problem because they themselves could not possibly stand to learn anything from your satire and refuse to see themselves in it? I don't know if I've ever had any experience with that. Let me think. Girl, I'm just playing. Of course I have. Girl, I know you did. You hired.
Is everybody so offended at everything nowadays? We can't even watch the Muppets now without having a trigger warning for offensive content. The Muppets? I mean, I grew up seeing minorities marginalized and women objectified constantly, and I turned out fine. And sure, I commit microaggressions against minorities every day of my life without realizing it, but believe you me, I turned out just fine. And yes, I call every Asian person I see on TV Chinese, but trust me, I turned out real good. I mean, kids these days aren't going to know the joy of sitting down at the breakfast table and seeing a racist African-American stereotype on their syrup bottle, and it's going to ruin them. They're not going to turn out fine. Why can't it just be like it was in 1975 when I was a kid and there were no locks on pill bottles or disclaimers on the Muppets and we were fine?
Tired of cancel culture ruining your childhood memories?
Thanks, cancel culture.
Does the extra woke crowd keep pointing out awful things in pop culture you'd just as soon remain ignorant about?
Thanks, cancel culture.
Can't enjoy a good bit of racism, sexism, or homophobia without left-wing radicals reminding you that it's the 21st century?
Thanks, cancel culture.
Try our new progress blockers. Just set the dial to the last year the world made sense to you.
1989, I think.
Be comforted as you watch the formerly problematic images that you know and love flash before your eyes with no acknowledgement of their contribution to your limited worldview.
Ooh, don't ask, don't tell.
You'll also be fed a steady diet of reassurance that this is perfectly all right by very loud, very wealthy outrage trolls.
Ooh, mayonnaise.
Progress blockers, because if you can't see the world changing, it isn't happening, right?
Oh my God. Progress blockers. Oh my God. How do you come up with this stuff? It's spot on.
I just have always been a huge fan of sketch comedy like Saturday Night Live and Key and Peele and, Living Color back in the day, whatever, Monty Python. So yeah, my brain tends to think in that way anyway. I mean, I've gone my whole life like coming up with this stuff in my head and never having a way to express it. Yeah. So it's kind of cool to have a place just to work it out now.
Ooh, nannies. You scared me with that knife though on the cat.
It's so funny. Off. When I was doing it, I didn't even think about it, but then when I look back at it, I was like, oh God, that looks dangerous.
That could have gone left. You committed to the bit. I love it, man. That's how you laugh to keep from crying, man. We need that.
Yeah. Absolutely. That was, everything started up for me right around election time. I'm like, it was just like, oh, it was like a, knot in my throat. Like I gotta speak, but I don't want to be another one of those ranting, rambling people on social media that's just angry and bringing you down every day. I didn't want to be that. So I'm like, how can I express what I want to say in a creative way that is interesting and entertaining for people? So, hopefully I'm accomplishing that in a way.
Absolutely. You are hilarious. I cannot wait to see what's next. And I can see you writing for SNL or whoever else, Amber Ruffin, somebody. So we're going to speak that into existence for you.
Well, I receive it.
Yes. In addition to, this amazing record, which is coming May 28th. And we want to get it. Are you going to do pre-sales or can people pre-order it now or?
Yeah, they can pre-order it now. I just realized that it is available actually at Target.com. It is available for pre-order.
Nice.
On Target's website, which I don't know why I didn't know it, but it is. And it's available for pre-save on Spotify, you can pre-purchase it on iTunes. And so the link for that is in my Instagram bio. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, if you all have any questions for Dara, please feel free to leave them in the chat. She'll be happy to answer them. This has really been so much fun. It's been great meeting you here. I can't wait to be able to do this in person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm so excited. Dreams of Waking is just what we need. As Cyrus said, it really is a balm a musical balm, a medicine, that we need right now in the society. And hearing the way you approach these songs, that have really come back in a way that's just as relevant as they were when they were first penned is amazing. So congratulations in advance.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm, this will be album number 6 or something. I'm starting to lose track at this point, but it doesn't matter how many times you do this. It still is it's like the birth of a child. I'm sure you've probably heard many musicians say that, but it really is. It's just like, everything that goes into it. It's been almost a year since it was conceived, and everything that it takes to actually put this together, from the concept to getting the musicians together, to the work that it takes to actually do it, to then all the planning and marketing and strategizing and all of that stuff. It's just it's an all-consuming thing. So to finally get it released out into the world is just it's super exciting, and it feels good that it does have relevance for such a time as this, as they say. It feels good. Yeah.
Well, Dara Tucker, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kiana. I'm honored to be here, and just thank you to WBGO and to you for even considering the project worthy to be covered in this way. It's really super cool for me. I know WBGO is the top jazz station in the country, and probably in the world, I would imagine. So this is just it's a huge honor.
Oh, well, you're welcome. It really is my honor. Tell everybody where they can follow you. We want to know your TikTok so we can get a laugh in, all of that.
Well, I'm at Dara Tucker pretty much everywhere. YouTube.com/Dara Tucker, Facebook/Dara Tucker. Instagram, I'm at Dara Tucker B. That's the only one that's different, is Instagram, Dara Tucker B, and TikTok is at Dara Tucker. So you can find me in all of the places doing all of the things, buyer beware with TikTok. I'm just me. I try to be myself over there and let it hang out a little bit. But you're going to get a little bit of that flavor no matter where you find me. I'm trying to be a little more open with just being who I am, regardless of, what the platform is. So
that's a word for the people. Be who you are, man. Just be who you are.
Yeah, it's a process.
Oh, Dion Michelle says, when your greatest hits album comes out, I need Golden Time to be on it.
Oh, shit. That is a song that's actually never been recorded. Only the ones who know about that one. That was actually my publishing company and my production company. All of my stuff is named after that song. It's called Golden Time, and I have never released it. So I'm going to have to find a place for that one. So thank you for the reminder, Dion.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here on this very special Jazz Appreciation Month edition of The Pulse. Every month is Jazz Appreciation Month, of course, at WBGO, but I'm so glad I was able to do this with you, Dara. So take care. We shall talk soon.
Thank you. You too, Kiana.
Have a great night.
Okay. You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for watching. Do I just jump out?